Chapter 1, The Alliance Breaks. From the HFY sci-fi story, the Deathworld Alliance was doomed. Until Earth entered the war. The sky over Kryn 6 wasn't red, it boiled. The planet's atmosphere churned with black and ash clouds and plasma streaks, each bolt splitting the heavens with a sound like a mountain being torn in half. Down on the ground, Commander Rhea Maddox stepped off the ramp of her dropship and into a world trying to kill everything on it. 3 seconds later, the first shell hit nearby, spraying molten rock across her exosuit. "Welcome to Kryn," she muttered, drawing her sidearm. Around her, Alliance units were falling apart. The Rask warriors, 8-foot insectoids from a bone-crushing gravity world, had retreated past the trenches, leaving their wounded behind. The fire-breathing Ralsheri were trying to ignite the air itself in panic. And the Terran reinforcements she'd been promised? Nowhere in sight. "Where's High Marshal Korth?" she barked into comms. A voice crackled through the static. "Dead. Vaporized when the eastern ridge fell. Command's broken, Rhea. They're calling full retreat." She paused. "No," she said flatly. "Ma'am? We don't retreat. Not today." She climbed the nearest ridge, passing scorched bodies and shattered mech frames. From the top, she saw it, the Zalnari fleet punching through the cloud cover like surgical knives. They didn't carpet bomb or charge blindly. They dissected. Surgically, precisely, unemotionally. One squad of drones broke a battalion with 2 strikes, and then moved on like they hadn't just erased 300 lives. "Cold bastards," Rhea muttered. From orbit, High Inquisitor Varnak watched the carnage unfold. His elongated skull, marked by the silver neural ridges of his species, tilted slightly. Multiple data feeds flowed into his neural cortex, running simulations in real time. Victory was inevitable. The Deathworld Alliance's final outpost would fall within 23 minutes. "Emotion," he whispered aloud, "the final flaw." His aide, a 4-armed intelligence node, asked, "Shall we prepare absorption of remaining survivors?" "Leave them." Crushed bones whisper louder than screaming mouths. Rhea descended back to the command pit, now barely a trench with flickering holomaps and half-dead techs. "Status of the core drill?" she asked. One of the Kryn engineers, a lizard-like Zari, looked up, bleeding from a cracked eye plate. "You're not serious." "I'm always serious." "But detonation of the core. It'll fracture the crust." "Exactly. They can't occupy what doesn't exist. We blow the mantle. Collapse the field. Everyone here dies." "They're dead already," Rhea said, pulling the fusion key from her belt. "But we'll give the Zalnari something they don't account for, madness." 10 minutes later, the last evac ships screamed into orbit, leaving only Rhea and a skeleton crew in the dead pit. The drill rumbled beneath their feet, digging into Kryn's unstable plates. "Commander," said Corporal Nguyen, her only surviving human tech. "That blast will leave nothing behind. If you stay." "I'm not staying. I'm staging." Nguyen blinked. "Staging what?" She smiled. "A funeral." She handed him a small black cube. "Go. Launch the signal once you're clear. It'll show them exactly what they missed." He stared at it. "You're going to fake your death." "No. I'm going to broadcast it." Nguyen saluted her, trembling. "It's been an honor, ma'am." She didn't answer. She was already climbing down into the drill chamber, humming an old Terran song that had no place in a war. High Inquisitor Varnak registered the seismic shift 7 minutes later. A ripple beneath the planet's surface. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't protocol. It was something else. The Zalnari fleet paused. Their formation adjusted. Simulations updated, but failed. Logic trees collapsed under the probability wave. The system couldn't explain a commander who chose planetary detonation with herself at ground zero. Then, the broadcast came. Varnak watched a shaky camera feed show Rhea, face smeared with ash, holding a plasma torch near the mantle breach. "This is Earth," she said. "We don't lose. Not like this." She looked straight into the lens. "You want order? We bring fire." She dropped the torch. The explosion wasn't fire, it was a planetary scream. The tectonic plates of Kryn cracked like an egg. Lava geysers roared into orbit. The Zalnari ships closest to the blast were swallowed by the rising stone and plasma wave. And somewhere inside it all, Rhea Maddox vanished. Hours later, Varnak stood silently on the deck of his dreadnought. Behind him, the neural tacticians ran analysis after analysis. All inconclusive. He stared at the screen, replaying the last frame, a human smiling in the middle of an apocalypse. "Incompatible," whispered the logic engine. Varnak closed his eyes. "No, it is compatible." He turned to his aide. "Recalculate everything. Humanity is not an ally." The aide hesitated. "Then what are they?" Varnak's eyes narrowed. "A contagion." Chapter 2, How to Scare a Deathworlder. From the HFY sci-fi story, the Deathworld Alliance was doomed. Until Earth entered the war. Rhea Maddox wasn't dead. Not quite. She coughed hard as the med-base filtration gel pulled shards of ash from her lungs. Every inch of her body ached like it had been struck by a god. Twice. "You coded flatline for 2 minutes," said Nguyen, standing at her bedside, eyes sunken and voice tight. "That qualifies as dead in most cultures." "Good thing I'm not for most cultures," Rhea rasped, pulling the oxygen mask off. "Where are we?" "Alliance Mobile Command. Orbiting Graxus Prime. Far from Varnak's sensors. You bought us a week." She tried to sit up. Failed. "Reports?" Nguyen hesitated. "Alliance morale has shifted. Some are calling you a martyr. Others think you're insane. Both are useful." Nguyen gave her a weary look. "They don't follow you out of loyalty. They follow because they don't know what else to believe in. That's where Earth shines, Corporal. We never needed loyalty to win. Just momentum." 3 days later, she stood in the middle of the briefing chamber, wrapped in bandages, leaning on a plasma cane, facing 20 of the galaxy's most terrifying creatures. None of them wanted her there. "Commander Maddox," growled a horned brute from Zerkal, "your actions on Kryn 6 were reckless. You destroyed a potential stronghold." "Exactly," she said, calmly. "The Zalnari expected us to hold. They don't know what to do with collapse. You violated protocol. I rewrote it." Gasps and snarls rippled across the room. She stepped forward. "You've all been fighting this war like soldiers. Straight lines, battle formations, honor codes. And you're losing. Because Varnak isn't a warrior. He's a machine with blood. He calculates your next 3 moves before you blink." She tapped her cane. "So we give him no moves to predict." The room quieted. "I'm proposing a full doctrine rewrite, asymmetry, unpredictability, emotional warfare. We call it Project Prometheus. It's based on Earth's worst centuries. Genocide. Uprisings. Urban warfare. Psychological operations. We'll show them madness." The insectoid Rask commander leaned in. "Madness? Your kind treats insanity as strength?" "No. But when you're losing, it beats extinction." Training began the next morning. Rhea watched as 3 Deathworlders failed to breach a human-simulated urban zone. They weren't slow, they were predictable. They moved like gladiators in a duel. Noble. Dead. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Kaleem, whispered, "They don't know how to break things the right way." Rhea nodded. "We teach them chaos. Then we let it spread." By week's end, Zerkal warriors were painting false heat signatures to bait Zalnari drones. Ralsheri flame priests broadcast Earth music, chaotic, discordant frequencies that confused enemy targeting arrays. Human snipers embedded in teams taught aliens how to shoot through shadows, not just targets. But it wasn't tactics that shifted the tide, it was culture. Rhea introduced Earth's war archive, unfiltered footage of Sarajevo, Fallujah, Stalingrad. She played them raw. No commentary. Just screams, smoke, and resilience. One silent evening, a Graxian elder approached her. "I watched your people fight in mud with sticks, against machines. And when?" Rhea didn't speak. She waited. "Your kind does not fear death. Not even failure." She met his eyes. "We fear silence. Irrelevance. That's worse." The elder nodded. "Then we will follow the noise." In orbit, Varnak studied new anomalies. Since Kryn, Alliance forces had stopped retreating. Instead of engaging, they ambushed. Instead of defending planets, they poisoned atmospheres. Suicide squads triggered chain reactions that collapsed entire moons. More troubling, Deathworld units were broadcasting erratic signals, distorted laughter, screams, nonsensical chatter. His cognitive core couldn't process the patterns. Their tactics lack structure, his aide reported. "They have become infected." "By Earth," Varnak said. "Yes." Logic collapse is spreading. Even our captured simulations fail. Varnak stared at the projection of Earth's emblem. A blue and green sphere. "Nothing remarkable. I miscalculated. Their flaw is not weakness. It's volatility." His systems reeled. Volatility defied prediction. He turned to the strategist bank. "Begin countermeasure program. Design neural firewalls against emotional noise. Disable audio transmissions within all assault units." "And Commander Maddox?" Varnak narrowed his eyes. "Find her. Silence her. Before her infection reaches the core." That same day, a battered Zalnari officer was dragged into Alliance HQ. He was bruised, twitching, mouth foaming. "He was recovered after a failed raid," said Kaleem. "But there's something off." Rhea approached, watching as the officer twitched at stimuli, lights, sounds, movement. Nguyen scanned him. His neural network's been corrupted. Not physically. Emotionally. Our comms chatter scrambled his logic center. Rhea's eyes lit up. "We didn't just fight him. We broke him." She turned to the others. "We've found our weapon. Emotion is our virus. We're going to lace every battlefield with the noise of Earth." Kaleem stepped forward. "A frequency campaign?" "No. A cultural contagion." That night, Rhea stood alone at the edge of the starboard deck, looking out at the fractured stars. "Nguyen," she said softly, "do you know why Earth never conquered space first? Because we couldn't stop fighting each other?" "No. Because we never wanted the stars. We wanted to be remembered." He looked at her, confused. "We leave scars," she whispered. "Not monuments." And now, they were going to leave one across the galaxy. Chapter 3, The Symphony of Fire. From the HFY sci-fi story, the Deathworld Alliance was doomed. Until Earth entered the war. Taraxis Alpha was quiet. Too quiet. The moon's jagged surface stretched for miles in brittle gray ridges and glass-shattered craters. Once a mining colony, now the chosen battlefield for a final stand. No vegetation, no atmosphere, no escape. Just 1,000 kilometers of dead rock, and one final chance to win a war. Commander Rhea Maddox stood inside the buried Alliance command dome beneath the surface. She wasn't wearing her uniform. Instead, she wore matte black armor etched with chaos symbols from 20 Deathworld cultures, each mark carved by a survivor of Kryn. "Fleet status?" she asked. Nguyen tapped his console. "Zalnari dreadnoughts entering high orbit. Varnak is leading them personally." "Perfect." She turned to her team, her voice low and sharp. "We are not here to defend. We are here to unravel them." Above the moon, the Zalnari formation unfolded in mechanical silence. Precision-engineered lines moved like blades across the stars. Varnak stood in the darkened war chamber of his dreadnought, surrounded by silent tacticians and lightless screens. He didn't speak. He only stared. All simulations run. Probability of Alliance resistance, negligible, reported a logic node. And Maddox? Varnak asked. Confirmed present. Surface-level transmissions consistent with Earth military signatures. Static anomalies increasing. Varnak stepped forward. Begin orbital bombardment. No warning. End this infection. The first salvo hit nothing. Plasma lances cratered empty facilities. Holographic decoys shimmered, disappeared. Every signal returned garbage. The dreadnought's processors began to stutter. Rhea watched the feed, lips curling. They're biting. On cue, the decoy structures broadcast Earth noise, laughter, sirens, whispered prayers in dozens of dialects, looped and distorted. The Zalnari fleet began to jitter. Begin Phase 2, she ordered. 1,000 stealth micro-drones, launched days earlier, now activated from sublunar caverns. Each was no larger than a fist, but inside? Earth's worst music, worst screams, worst madness, compressed into high-frequency noise the Zalnari couldn't filter. The result, chaos. Tactical AI aboard enemy ships began spitting error codes. Orders misrouted. Targeting scrambled. Neural feedback loops collapsed. A fleet built to function in harmony now buckled under dissonance. Inside the Zalnari flagship, Varnak's systems glitched for the first time in centuries. Identify source of contamination, he demanded. A technician answered shakily. We are being overstimulated. Input overload. Emotional signals infiltrating logic cores. Shut down all non-essential systems. Block the interference. Another screen flickered. A live feed appeared. Commander Maddox. She was seated in a scorched chair, staring directly at the camera, helmet off, eyes calm. You wanted silence, Varnak, she said. But we brought you noise. You will not survive this. That's the point. She stood. You were designed to understand control. We were born in fire. We are chaos with purpose. Then the signal cut. Simultaneously, dozens of hidden charges, threaded deep beneath Taraxis, detonated. Not to destroy, but to reveal. A web of light erupted across the moon's crust, a mirrored data array, ancient tech from the extinct Lurian species. Rhea's team had reactivated it weeks prior. The reflection? The Zalnari fleet's own transmissions, multiplied, looped, reversed, fed back into their minds. The fleet's own fear now hunted them. In the dreadnought, Varnak began to falter. His neural core spiked. Visions. Noise. Symbols. Human war songs. Cries of children. Apocalyptic joy. Logic simulations now fed him 14 contradictory outcomes per second. One final image appeared across every Zalnari console, Earth, in flames, but smiling. End it, he hissed. End me. His second-in-command recoiled. What? I will not fall to disorder. Purge the ship. Purge everything. But Varnak overrode all systems. Entered a neural sequence forbidden even to his kind. In the silence that followed, the dreadnought pulsed, then folded in on itself in a sphere of white collapse. The flagship was gone. In the command dome, no one cheered. They watched the fireball bloom silently across the screen. Then, slowly, Deathworlders began to rise. The Rask pounded their fists on the floor. The Ralsheri lit fire in their hands and raised it high. Even the cold-blooded Graxians hissed a word none had used for centuries. Victory. Rhea stood among them. Burned. Bruised. Smiling. Ngwyn approached her. They're gone. What now? Now, she said. Now we rewrite the galaxy. Epilogue. 1 week later. Alliance Memorial Station. A plaque hung beneath a shattered Zalmari core fragment. It read, "They brought order. We answered with fire. Commander Rhea Maddox, Earth." Chapter 4, The War After Victory. From the HFY sci-fi story, the Deathworld Alliance was doomed. Until Earth entered the war. The war was over. At least, that's what the Alliance broadcast across 100 systems. But Commander Rhea Maddox knew better. Victory wasn't peace. It was pressure. The kind that built under silence. The kind that cracked civilizations, not with bombs, but with questions. What now? Aboard the rebuilt flagship Leviathan Rising, Maddox stood in the command center, staring through armored glass at the edge of Alliance space. The void beyond still glowed faintly, traces of Zalmari collapse. Empty now. For how long, no one could say. Lieutenant Kaleem stepped in, his reptilian armor polished but dented from a week's worth of diplomatic scuffles. "You're late," Rhea said. "I was dragged into another ceremony," Kaleem grunted. "The Graxians want to rename a comet after you. The Rask demand your DNA for battle clone rights. And the Ralsheri wish to canonize your smile." She sighed. "Humans don't canonize smiles. They do now." Rhea turned from the window and activated the central table. Holograms lit up, fractured planetary sectors, distressed signals, rising factions. "Varnak's death left a vacuum," she said. "The Dominion systems were too centralized. Now their outer colonies have collapsed, and the inner ones are cannibalizing each other." "Isn't that good?" Kaleem asked. "Let them eat themselves." "No. Because they're not alone." She tapped a sector highlighted in crimson. "A new faction's forming in the Zalmari ruins. Not logical. Not ordered. Something worse, a hybrid ideology. Pieces of Dominion structure, laced with human emotional warfare." Nguyen walked in from the side, tossing a data pad on the console. "Intercepted signals. Earth-style music, distorted. Speeches that sound like yours, but wrong." Kaleem frowned. "They're copying us?" "Not just copying," Rhea said. "They're evolving. Chaos was our advantage. Now it's out of our hands." Nguyen crossed his arms. "So we fight again?" "No," she replied. "Not yet. First, we understand what we've created." That evening, Rhea entered her private chamber. The lights dimmed, casting shadows against the steel walls. A flickering screen displayed old Earth footage, black and white war reels, post-crisis speeches, cities rising from ashes. She poured a glass of something too strong for most species, then sat down and opened the final report from the frontline colonies. One entry caught her eye. A human outpost, Terra Echo, had gone dark. She accessed the backup logs. The last transmission wasn't technical. It was a message, spoken clearly, almost proudly. "They listened to our rage. They studied our fire. And now they burn in it. We are not afraid of madness, we are it." She played it again. Then again. Next morning, she called for a closed council meeting. 10 species. 10 war-hardened leaders. None of them comfortable in a room together, even now. "The war changed us," Rhea began, "but it also broke something in the galaxy." "We survived," growled General Kerr of the Rask. "That's all that mattered." "No," she snapped. "It isn't. We didn't just survive. We infected. Our chaos was a virus. And now it's mutating without us." An elder Graxian leaned forward. "You propose what?" "Order?" From the same humans who just detonated a moon in a war chant. "I propose containment. Strategy. If we let chaos run wild, we'll face a new enemy, one we helped build, and we won't understand it." "And who leads that containment?" asked a Ralsheri flamespeaker. Rhea looked around the room. "Earth will." They all stared. She continued, slowly. "Because only humans can navigate the fire we started. Hours later, Rhea stood before the Alliance Senate, her image broadcast across sectors. No medals. No fanfare. "I didn't come here to lead," she began. "Earth didn't come to conquer. We came because the galaxy was burning, and we understood fire." She looked into the lens. "But fire doesn't choose. It spreads. The Zalmari taught you to fear control. We taught you to fear freedom." She paused. "Now, we choose balance." A silence followed. Then applause. Reluctant. But growing. Days passed. A new initiative began, the Equilibrium Protocol, a task force led by Earth, staffed by Deathworld veterans, designed to intervene wherever post-war chaos spun too far. But peace didn't arrive with fanfare. It arrived in fragments. In border stations where enemy tech twisted into cult symbols. In refugee ships where Zalmari and humans shared ghost stories. In abandoned battlefields, now glowing gardens of mutated logic metal. And always, in the static whispers Rhea couldn't track. One night, alone again, she stood at the outer hull, watching the stars drift. Nguyen walked up quietly. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. "Do you think we were right to do it?" she finally asked. Nguyen tilted his head. "Detonate a planet? Hijack a culture? Drive the most logical race in the galaxy into self-immolation?" He thought. "Yes," he said. "Because if we didn't, we wouldn't be here." She nodded. Then whispered, "But what if we're not supposed to be?" Outside, beyond sensors, beyond fleets, in the ruins of Varnak's empire, something watched. Something learning. It didn't hate Earth. It admired it. And it would do better.